welcome to another episode of Rich Politics. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in today. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. You're on YouTube, and of course we're on Facebook and Twitter and all the social media platforms. Well, my guest today, I came across somebody who had already done a documentary that I was able to see actually before it went live, and I was really impressed with the work that she had done, because it's always been a passion of mine. Education, of course, here in Wales is a big issue for me because I got children, but more so the lack of education and the correspondence that it has to poverty. Now, here in Wales, we have 1 in 3 children living in poverty. There's a high level of deprivation across Wales, higher than anywhere else in the UK. So when I saw this, coming from a background from South Wales in Llanelli, where I was kicked out of school at 15, we were a poor family, my education was affected by that poverty. And so I was really struck with this particular documentary. And so my guest today, I'm so excited to have her on, is Sophie Sandor. She is the film director. She produced this documentary, which we're going to show a little clip a little bit later. But I want you to welcome my guest today, Sophie Sandor. Sophie, how are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Now, I'm so excited to have you on because I watched the documentary. And do you want to tell the viewers a little bit about why you produced it and what it's about?
Yeah, so this documentary, I've been interested in the education system, the economics of the education system, since I was about 11 years old. I went to a very bad performing school with poor catchment areas, and so that's what sparked my interest in this topic. The documentary that I've made is about why the poorest get the worst deal out of the UK's education system, and it's from an economic perspective, but it's also got a philosopher, economists, academics, and people, mainly, most importantly, people who have actually founded schools and seen them have an impact on children, and they've got the statistics and they're doing very well. And Katharine Birbalsingh, who's in the film, for example, she founded Michaela Community School. That the GCSE cohort there, her first cohorts, are now top in the country for progress aid. So yeah, real practical examples featured in the film, as well as the abstract economic perspective.
Yeah, there is a correlation between poverty and education. Well, obviously we know that, but we say obviously, but actually a lot of people don't appreciate it or understand it, do they? Now, I'm going to play a clip from the documentary, and I'll put a link in our bio here so people can watch the full documentary, because you need to watch it. It's quite powerful. So sit back and watch this.
If you wanted to keep people at the bottom of the pile, then the British educational system, it seems to me, is the perfect method of doing it.
In 2010, Eton sent more children to Oxford and Cambridge than the entire population of children on 3 school years.
We have, in the last 15 years or so, doubled what we spend on education. We're now up to about 90 billion. That's a lot of money. So why is it that things have flatlined? Because they haven't got better. It's not about money, it's about ideas. And the ideas that are in the current education system are preventing real growth.
Schools with the highest level of poverty frequently run out of money the fastest because they're having to do more. But if they're not doing the right things, all the amount of money they spend on these children won't have any effect.
I am Sophie Sandor. This is Ayr, where I grew up, living with my mum and then my gran. This is the house I lived in with my mum. Living off state benefits, we were in the bottom quintile of UK household incomes. This is the chip shop where my mum was a waitress when I started secondary school. It's now a kebab shop. This is the school I went to. It remains one of the worst performing schools in Scotland, with some of the very poorest catchment areas. I always loved school, but I could tell something wasn't right. Not long in secondary school, I started to become aware that the poorest get the worst deal out of the schooling system in the UK. Ever since, I've been interested in why this is.
Well, that's just a clip from the documentary, and it is so powerful. And first of all, let me say, well done, fantastic. You know, you've done a great job, and I love the documentary. And I hope as many people viewing, my subscribers and followers across all the platforms, will check it out, because it is very moving. Now, Sophie, it's quite personal, isn't it? Because it's a little bit of your story as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your upbringing in Ayr?
Yeah, so I grew up in Ayr, which is a town in the west coast of Scotland, a seaside town. And I grew up with just my mum, and most of the time she was on benefits, so low income, bottom quintile of UK household incomes, as I say in the film. And Then I went to one of the worst performing schools in the country. So that was just to give an example of what it's like, because it's absolutely true. And so the film opens with the most important statistics, or most important points rather. So you've got the statistic about eating, sending more children to Oxford and Cambridge than the entire population of free school meals in 2010, and it's pretty similar to that in other years. And the low expectations culture and the correlation between poverty and poor education. So that's all boom, boom, boom at the beginning. And yeah, I've experienced it in real life too.
Yeah, I noticed, of course, the documentary is personal, but it's also quite powerful in the fact that it represents the whole of the United Kingdom, our education and poverty are linked. Some of the things that were mentioned in the documentary, like it's not about money, it's about ideas. Can you develop that a little bit more for us? Because, of course, we think it is just a money issue, don't we?
Yeah, that is the biggest, most important thing to debunk. It really isn't about money. If economics, if you have the right incentive structures, the profit motive helps. Anything that incentivizes competition, though, is a major improvement. So the reason it's not about money is that you can get all the money in the world, but you can be throwing it down the drain. And we see that in many ways. Not the right behavior systems in place, too much administration. So this is this is one of the huge points.
I think because it's ideas and it's also opportunities, isn't it? Because a lot of people can have a good education, but if they don't have an opportunity after education, then of course they fall foul of that as well. So there is a sense that education needs a big overhaul really in the country. Now here in Wales, if I can speak just about Welsh education here for a moment, we have very high levels of poverty, and my listeners will know this. And I just want to show our viewers a statistic from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, and it says even before coronavirus, almost a quarter of people in Wales were in poverty. That's 700,000 living in precarious and insecure lives. The risk for children alone was higher, with 3 in 10 children living in poverty. Wales has lower pay for people in every sector than the rest of the UK. It's a shocking statistic, but it also plays into the narrative because, I don't know if you know this, Sophie, Wales is at the bottom of the measuring table they use for education in the UK. Is called the PISA table. Wales is underperforming, far worse than Scotland, Northern Ireland, and England. And of course, it's correlated, isn't it? Because of the poverty, we see that education is being failed as well. So the two go hand in hand. The question I want to ask you is then, Soph, what is the answer? What do you think governments need to do? What do we need to do to change that?
Well, this is what the documentary is trying to do without giving any specific policy. It's very negative in a way, this documentary, because it's just saying this system, the way it's designed, is holding children back because we don't have new schools by educational entrepreneurs. They cannot open up. It's very difficult to open new schools up, and we don't have this happening, and the free schools and things were a step in the right direction. As you say, well, lockdown is definitely not the answer. That this was a step way back. It's holding everyone back. Children are already behind when they come back from the summer holidays. This has completely exacerbated that, so we're seeing a huge multiplying of that effect. And just as everything that's wrong with the education system affects the poorest children the worst, so is lockdown. So learning from home, you're less likely to be able to do that if you don't have the resources, if you don't have parents who can be there all the time. They may be working, they will be working, they may be working 1, 2, 3 jobs. You don't have access to the internet, to devices, you don't have a quiet home. There's lots of evidence already on this impact. Daisy Christodoulou.
Yeah, the impact that lockdown certainly has had. I got 5 children of my own, so I know all about homeschooling and stuff at the moment. And it is a challenge. I've had a load of parents contact me on previous shows and comment as well on Facebook about the challenges that they're facing, not just with devices, but managing, jobs as well, and coming home sometimes at 7 o'clock at night and having to homeschool because they've been with their grandparents who can't do it. I mean, this lockdown at this time, I think, back in March, we all accepted it. But the fact that the children have been off school for so long, it's definitely going to have an impact, isn't it, on the poorest in our communities. Now, for those of you who don't know, Sophie is on social media. So make sure you follow her there on Twitter, and you can get hold of the documentary on there as well. I'm sure she'd appreciate it, and any feedback would be great as well. But the lockdown, Sophie, I just want to zero in on that, because we don't really know when it's going to end. We know certainly that Gavin Williamson has hinted towards possibly April. Some have said September before the kids go back. I mean, this is going to have a huge impact, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just absolutely terrible. I just remember, poverty in education aside, when I was at school, I was constantly thrilled to be at school, around people, around teachers, all the clubs after school, future school, everything, choir practice. I would have been totally devastated if I was disappointed enough if one event was cancelled. But oh my goodness, and God knows the impact, the awful impact this is having on children and their education, because a lot of the benefit of being around teachers is in person as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Sophie, listen, thank you ever so much for coming on Rich Politics and sharing the documentary. Now, if there's one thing you could say to Boris Johnson, what would you say to him?
Oh gosh, it would definitely be to make it easier, remove a lot of the bureaucracy in the education system and planning. I would say please remove a lot of the restrictions to setting up schools, so that we can get more competitive, brilliant schools setting up that we know work, based on statistics that we have from preschools and private schools and low-cost private schools all over the world.
That's great. Sophie, thank you ever so much for coming on today. And I hope you all take the time to watch the documentary. It is absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Very insightful and very educational, actually. And I hope that, we can really do something to campaign towards getting this lockdown lifted in schools, maybe vaccinate the teachers so we can get the children back, because I want my kids back in school, basically, like a lot of parents as well. So thank you ever so much for taking the time to tune in. Don't forget to follow us on all the social media platforms. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and all the other platforms as well. Sophie, thank you ever so much for coming on. I wish you every success in the future. Hey, and don't stop making those documentaries, because it was awesome.
Thank you.
God bless. Take care now. Bye.
Bye.